Well, hello there. My name is HW. Thank you so much for watching Tone Junkie TV. And if you play pedals and a Kemper, you probably need a camper. Okay, so like many of you, I've had a lot of different setups over the years. My very first setup, my very first rig with a tube amp was a Blues Junior amp with a bunch of pedals that I just run in front of it. Compressors, overdrives, all that stuff, then modulation, then time-based effects. But as time went on, I started using hotter amps. Like I got into Vox amps and lower wattage stuff so I could crank it up a little bit. And I started noticing the delays and the reverbs, you know, they do that thing that they do in front of amps. And so as I started getting into gainier amps, I wanted to start using effects loops. And so I did, and I changed my whole pedal board and I routed things differently, and it worked. And I ran 4-cable method for a long time. And the problem was I always had to make changes on my pedal board. And that is a problem that was solved with the Kemper, because I became obsessed with this thing. And once I really became obsessed with this thing, you know, I kind of just put amps away. I mean, look, I have a bunch of amps around the house, a bunch of guitars, and I enjoy amps, and I just put together little strings of pedals, 3-4 pedals, and I play them in the house. But whenever I go out, I use this unit here, and this thing has 4 stomps in the front, the amp stack, and then effects in the back. But if you watch this channel or you listen to the podcast, you know I've been talking a lot about building a pedal board again. And I love pedals. There's so many of my favorite pedals that I'm just really into, but I don't know. I haven't been able to get a setup to me that is easy. And when I mean easy, I mean flexible. Flexibility is a really big deal to me because sometimes I come home and I just want to plug in to my original 1965 deluxe reverb. And then other times I just want to plug into my Kemper. And then other times I want to run stereo and I don't want to have to redo everything. I just want to enjoy stereo delays and then just simple mono setup. And I want to be able to use an effects loop sometimes, but I hate taking apart a pedal board that I spent time on. And that is where I think this thing is super cool. The Kemper gives us huge amounts of flexibility. What it does is it allows our pedal board to stay completely intact. No more unplugging and plugging in things. It really is like a toolbox. In fact, that's what it says right there. Kemper toolbox. It's kind of like a toolbox for the Kemper. So let's check out this very simple sort of all mono setup. This is running 1 Kemper. It could be 1 amp. You could run anything in that Kemper spot. But this is how I would play at home when I would, you know, get home from a gig or something and I would plop down my pedal board and I would just plug into my 65 Deluxe Reverb. I'm not gigging it. I just leave it at home and, you know, this is where it sits. But I just want to play the guitar. I'm not trying to get, you know, overly complicated. So what I would do is I would run my guitar into all of the mono green pedals in this diagram right here. That would be like compressors, overdrives, maybe a chorus, anything that you would, you know, just typically not need a stereo image for, that you wouldn't run stereo out of any of these pedals. From there, I would run that into the dry return of the Kemper. Now the Kemper then is going to notice that I only have 1 amplifier plugged in. I'm only using 1 of the outputs going to that Kemper or that amplifier. And it's going to automatically route the dry return to the wet send. That wet send is going to go right out on my pedal board to all of my stereo effects. That could be a Line 6 M9, it could be an HX effects, anything, any stereo pedal that I have in line. I can run all my stereos together and then I can run them back to the return, left and right of the Kemper. Now here's what that allows me to do. It allows me to leave the Kemper on my board with my mono and my stereo pedals all hooked up at once, and I never have to change my board even when I want to switch to a setup like this. Yep, that's right. Now we're going to use the effects loop, and all I have to do without taking apart anything on my board, because I've already plugged it all into the Kemper, all I have to do is run the cables from the Kemper here. So I would run the Kemper direct out, and I would run the return input and alternative out, and those are actually the names that I would run it to on the back of the Kemper. So I don't even have to think about send and returns. I literally just have to run these directly to my Kemper, what it says on the back, and boom, set up in a flash. That is cool. The other cool thing it does is it allows you to take that same mono setup and turn it into a dual amp setup, a 2 amp setup. And when you do that, you simply just plug in another Kemper or another amp. You can run a Kemper and an amp. I know a lot of people do that on Sunday mornings. And all you have to do then is decide, do I want to run stereo left and right to that amp and that Kemper? Or do you want to hit this little button and send mono to both of them? Okay, we ran through a ton of stuff there, but I think it's important to note that all of these combinations the Kemper allows you to do. Whether you have one Kemper and you want to run everything in front, or whether you have one Kemper and you want to run everything in the front and go through the effects loop, the Kemper can do that. You can easily add another Kemper. Or, like I said, what I see a lot of people doing is pairing it with something like an Iridium or an HX Stomp, a lower cost solution that's going to enable you to get stereo capability going out front of house, left and right, in terms of your amplifiers. The other cool thing that the Kemper has here, there's actually 2 versions of it, and this one that I'm using has a transformer. There's a version without the transformer, and it doesn't have these extra little 2 buttons right here, but this one does. And what those are is a phase switch and a ground lift. Now that is super duper important. The Kemper has a ground lift, but it doesn't have a phase switch. And so what that means is you might encounter an amplifier that's out of phase with the Kemper signal, or you might, even if you put it on constant latency, you could encounter other pieces of gear where you may need to flip the phase or lift the ground to get rid of hum. For me, I primarily want to play a Kemper, but I want to be able to take the pedal board that I'm building and use it with other things. Maybe I do want to plug in an amp at some gig. Maybe I do want to bring an HX Stomp that's going to be on that board, and sometimes I want to send a different amp out one side than the Kemper. And what I love about this is how Mark and the team at Ohmless I don't even have to think about what I'm doing. I don't have to think about send and returns. I just literally Kemper input, Kemper direct output, Kemper return input, Kemper alternative input. I don't have to think about it. I go from what this one says to what the back of my Kemper says, and it makes it super simple. I know some of you think HW is a smart guy, and maybe in some things I am, but I'm telling you, when I set up at gigs or at church, I have made so many bonehead mistakes. Like, I have spent like 20 minutes trying to figure out what's wrong with my pedal board, only to realize that earlier that night I had switched out a pedal and something came loose, and I really quickly plugged it back in, and I somehow switched. I went out of the output of one pedal when I should have gone into the input. Like I plugged the pedal in backwards, and so it wasn't working. I mean, that's the kind of dumb stuff that, I don't know, happens to me whenever I get like stressed out, or why isn't this working, or I'm looking for a cable that's wrong and I can't figure anything out. So I love this ease of use. This also allows me to just really quick double check, did I plug everything in right? And I don't have to think about sends and returns. I know I've said that, but I'm telling you, that's the kind of stuff that just I love in gear. I love easy to use stuff. That's one of the reasons I love the Kemper. I don't have to worry about so many things going wrong, but when I do want to use a pedal board, which I'm building right now, I am definitely building it around the Ohmless pedal Kemper. Thank you to the good people at Ohmless for sending me this. They sent it to me and wanted me to check it out and asked me to do a video on it, full disclosure. And honestly, at first I was like, okay, this is cool. But as I've been really using this and testing it out, I've realized, oh shoot, this is going to allow me to actually get past all of the challenges I've been facing with building a pedal board again. This is actually going to be the device that takes away from what I disliked about pedal boards, which is just all of the intricacies of in and out, and well, can I set it up differently? Can I use another amp? Okay, well, what do I have to do to my pedal board? I love the Kemper for its simplicity, but I love pedals for their variety and how fun pedals are. And this thing is allowing me to maintain simplicity while still enjoying all of the flavors that pedals bring. I'm going to say that again. The Ohmless Kemper is really what I'm finding is the best solution for me as primarily a Kemper user to maintain simplicity. because I don't have to think about what I'm plugging in, and I don't have to think about taking apart a board, and it's actually making me really excited for this board build, which I hope to have done in about 2 weeks or so. I've been HW. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope maybe you're going to consider checking this thing out. I'm excited about it. You're going to see it in a bunch more videos, and it's going to be really sort of in that that HW builds a new board video. Thanks so much for watching Tone Junkie TV. If you get anything out of these, like, subscribe, really helps the YouTube algorithm. I've been HW. HW out.